Today we're going to have a look at multi-part books and how to quote it on Dolphin 4. Now, for a lot of jobbing companies, this is probably one of the main products that they struggle with moving on to a new system. So we're going to cover this from scratch today. So once Dolphin is open, you're going to click on the quoting module and we're going to open up the estimating module. We're going to be quoting maybe a triplicate book today, and we're going to be doing it litho. So I'll just expand this. So remember, we're going to click this add quote button on the top to start a new quotation. Now, I'm not going to run through absolutely everything on the system when it comes to the administration part. I'm just going to select the client for now, and I'll select maybe Dolphin Works, and then I'm going to come across to the description. Now, once again, the description, you are going to populate this field as you want it displayed on your quote letter to the customer. So it needs to contain all the relevant information to the quotation so that there's no blurred lines as to what the customer will be receiving. So I'm going to call this maybe invoice books. So we can type that in and I'll say these invoice books is going to be 50 in triplicate, and I'll say maybe one to view. To view, and then I'll say it's printed in black, one side numbered and birthed on NCR, and I can say in brackets the color of the NCR paper, and I'll abbreviate it by just putting the first letter in. So I'll say maybe it's white, blue, and yellow. Those are the three colors for the CB, CFB, and CF. And then I'll just say maybe, it is normally the case, but I'll just put in brackets here, common image, which means that every single page in the triplicate copies will be printed exactly the same. Okay. Then I'll say that it's going to be bound hardcover with flap or whatever the case may be, however you put that description in. Okay. Now, once we've got the actual description in, what we're going to do is we're going to come across to the finish size. We're going to hit the din size drop-down window, and we're going to select, in the case of these books, maybe we'll do a A4 because it's probably one of the most common sizes. Under quantity, I'll maybe quote on two different quantities. So I'm going to, my first quantity, I'll say I'm going to be quoting on 5 books. And then I can copy that over by hitting this green tick, and we're also going to quote on 10 books. So now that we specified our quantities, we're going to come down to the press tab over here, and I'm going to hit the plus button under my section. Okay. Now under here, I've listed, as you can see under the litho section, I've listed NCR, and I've listed a top copy, a bottom copy, and a middle copy. Under this listings, I've specified under type that we're going to be using same plates. What that means is, because we need to list 50 repeats, because it's going to be 50 sets in a book, right? 50 in triplicate. So by selecting same plates, the system knows it must use the same plate for all 50 sets. Okay? For all 50 sets in triplicate. Otherwise, if you are going to select different plates, it's going to give you 50 plates for every section. Okay, so we need to specify its same plates. Now, we're going to start with the top copy. I'm going to hit the add button to pull it into the quotation. Once we've pulled it in, you'll note the width and the depth specified based on the finish size which was populated on top. The repeats, we're stating it's 50 in triplicate. So my repeats needs to be 50. Okay. We have specified in the background that our NCR is same plates. So now it will only allow one plate for all 50 repeats. Okay. Next thing we need to do is we're going to come across to our ink. Okay, we're going to hit the plus button, and we're going to say we're going to select black. We're going to add that into the quotation. We're printing this black one side only. You can see under sides it's got F for front. There we go. So it's one side only. We're coming to our paper now. We're going to hit the plus button and we're now going to search for our NCR paper. Now, NCR could be under a number of names in your system because you get various types of NCR paper. Okay. I'm just scrolling through this demo version to find the NCR that we normally use in your reactor. There we go. So now if I isolate that by typing in the name over here, I'll be able to see all my reactors in the system. Now we specified that top copy is going to be white, so I'm looking for CB white. So there's reactor white, CB. You'll notice on the top right hand side over there, there's the price of the paper and when last it was updated. I did cover this in a previous module, but if you see this paper has been outdated and you change the price, it would update to today's date when I override that price. So let's say the price went up to 3,200. The minute I click off, you can see today's date has been populated. So now I know that this price is relevant. Okay. So now once I've got my CB white selected, I'm happy with the price. I can add that into the quotation. Next thing we need to do is we need to select the press we're running it on. So I'm going to hit the plus button and I'm going to now select the GTO. Okay. And I'm going to add that. Now, once we've added the machine has a maximum size that it can print. So based on the sheet size we've selected and the type of machine, we've realized now that we can run this A4 2 up on the GTO. And if I draw your attention to the top under section, by running a 2 up, we'll be cutting 4 out. Now, on a quantity of 5 or 10 books as an estimator, you'll probably find that if you change this to 1 up, okay, you'll be able to cut 9 out of the sheet. So if I change it to 1 up and I click off, you'll see now we can cut 9 out of a sheet, which makes it far more cost effective to run this job. So running it 1 up is going to be the better option for these NCR books. Okay. Now, under press, after we've changed it to 1 up, you'll notice next to up, we've got a number from and a number to column. Okay, these two columns over here. Now, if you already know the starting number and the finishing number, you can populate it in this field. Or when the client places the order and they give you the start and finish number, you can populate it in this field. And as a result, when you generate a work ticket, this will pull through onto the work ticket. Okay, so whoever's reading the work ticket, the machine minder, the production planner, will be able to see what the starting number is and what the ending number is for these particular book orders. Okay, so that's the press we've now added. The next thing we need to add is the guillotine, but you'll see that that is already populated, and the reason for that is because I've managed to link my guillotine to my press. Okay, so if I just click on press and I go to GTO and I go to linked items, you'll see I've got plates linked to that press and I've got a guillotine linked, which means every time I select the GTO, it will automatically do my guillotine calculation for me. And you can link many things to your actual press. But with that being said, with numbering and perforating on the GTO, that normally takes extra setup time or extra make ready time, which means that your machine minder needs to put the numbering barrels onto the press. If that press isn't set up permanently for numbering and perforating, that's a manual process which gets added onto his make ready time. As a result, I haven't set that up under the GTO because in my demo database, my GTO isn't set up permanently for numbering and perforating because we run covers on the machine and a number of other things as well. So in order to add that additional time for a make ready for setting up the numbering barrels and the perforating wheels or perf strips or however you do your perforating on your press, we've listed it under this adjustments column, which means that whenever we need to do numbering and perforating on the GTO, we can just come to this adjustments column, hit the plus button, and I'm going to say I'm now going to be numbering on the GTO, and you can see I've allowed a time factor that can be added onto my make ready time to allow for numbering. I've also allowed, in this case, an extra 20 machine size overs to be added on for the make ready of setting up the numbering. And I've specified that this machine will run at a maximum of 3,000 impressions an hour whenever I'm doing numbering. I've set up perforating in exactly the same manner. And the reason I didn't set up numbering and perforating as one operation is because you'll get certain jobs that's numbered and not perforated, and vice versa. So I've set it up as two separate items so that we can choose one, the other, or both. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to select my numbering. I'm going to add that into the quotation. Right. So it's added in the numbering to my quotation now. I can also add in the perforating. Okay. So if I go there and I add in perforating, there we go. The only thing is that repeats, I'm actually going to change to 1 because we don't want it calculating additional make ready time. We just want it calculating that make ready time once, because once you've done the numbering make ready and the perforating make ready, you're doing it on the CB. Then it's set up for your CFB and your CF, or majority of the work is in any case. So you won't need that repeated. You only need it to calculate once. Okay. You can also hard set that in the system by going to repeat and hard coding it to 1, which means that every time you select it, it will only pull through 1 repeat. So now that we've got the numbering and perforating added to this, we can now come back up to the top and we can add in our middle copy by hitting the plus button. Now I'm going to select my middle copy. I'm going to specify once again that there are 50 repeats because it's 50 sets. I'm going to come to my ink. I'm going to select my black, add that in. Come to my paper, and we've specified the middle copy is blue, so it will be CFB blue. So I can actually come to my color and I can isolate the blues. So there I've got CFB blue now. We can always add in a supplier here. I can say that it's Peters if there isn't one specified, and we can update that price if we need to. For the purpose of this, I'm going to leave it as is, and I'm going to add in my blue. And now I'm going to add in my press once again, which is that GTO. And this time around, I don't need to add the adjustments for numbering and perforating because it's already been done on the CB. I just need to change my up to 1 up so that it calculates correctly. And my guillotine has pulled through automatically once again because it's linked to my actual press. So finally, I'm going to come back to the top. I'm going to add my bottom copy by hitting the plus button. I'm going to select bottom copy, add that in. And just like we did with the other 2 copies, we're going to run through the processes by adding our inks, adding our papers. In this case, it's going to be CF yellow, so I can isolate yellow in my search filter. And there's CF yellow. It's the wrong size though. You just got to be careful of that. It doesn't seem to have a bigger size CF yellow. So let's maybe look at green in this case. And there we go. We've got a CF green. No, we don't. Okay, let's just find a CF on the big size. I'll just take that blue again, CF. Add that in. I'll specify, in this case, I can override it and specify that that's yellow. Just make sure that the pricing is the same though. And I'm going to select my press. Specify that it's 1 up once again. And basically my guillotine is added in. So now we've got all 3 copies listed in our quote. The next thing we need to do now is we need to link the finishing to the quotation. So there's one of 2 ways you can do it. You can either hit link finishing on the top over here, and you can start adding your hand collating, your binding and stuff like that. Or you can just go over to the additional column. You'll notice under your plates it's only allowed for 1 plate because it's a common plate throughout. Now under finishing, I'm going to hit the plus button. I'm going to go into my filter and I'm going to search for collating. I'm going to select collating, add that in. There we go. And now in this case, I'm going to select my binding, and there's one of 2 ways you can do this. Let me just see what I've got in my system for, okay, let's just say quarter binding or something. I'll select quarter binding now. So there's one of two ways you can set up this binding. You can either set it up to allow for your boards on the top and bottom, and your book cloth and your flap and everything all included in the binding price. Okay. And then you'll just need to add hand collating and quarter binding, and you can list it as A4, A5, whatever the case may be, with all of those additional costs included. Or if not, you'll have to come back to your press over here and you need to make an allowance for your boards. Okay. So to do that, if you're going to do it this way around, you can select cover, because it will allow for a front and a back cover. You can see it's double the size basically. There's only going to be one repeat with the cover. You're not going to be selecting ink because you're not printing on those case boards. You can come to your paper and you can now search for whatever your grade chipboard is. Let me just, I'm not sure what I have chipboard under. There we go. So if I take maybe a 1200 micron chipboard, I can add that in. So I've added that in, and now under press, we need to specify a non-printing press, okay? So that it doesn't calculate any costs, but it needs the press to be able to calculate the paper. So if you want to set up a non-printing press, you can just call it that exact thing. So I'll just say non-printing press. We can scroll across. We don't have to put in a cost per hour. We'll just state that it's one station, no make ready. We need to specify that the sheets we're running, and we need to specify that it's normal. In other words, it's not continuous. And we can just put in a minimum and maximum size here. I'll just say maybe it's 210, 297, and I'll say the same over there as my GTO because I don't have anything bigger. I'm not going to allow for grip or speed or anything, and I'll just tab all the way across, and then I'll add that non-printing press into the system. Now, once I add the non-printing press into the system, what I need to do is, you can see up is showing as one up. It's not calculating any cost. But what it is doing is it's allowing us to now calculate the amount out that we're cutting out of the 649.15. And because we're specifying 297,420 as the size for the front and the back cover, it's now going to cut 4 out of the sheet. Okay. If I make this 210, 297 and I specify I've got 2 repeats, which means a front and a back, it will calculate it accordingly. So I'll just show you. If I make that 210 by 297 and I make that, sorry, the grip has defaulted over there. I'm just going to make it 0. And I'm going to specify I've got 2 repeats. And I'm going to specify under my non-printing press, I only want to run this one up. So now you can see it's cutting 9 out. It's running at 1 up. I've got 2 repeats, so it's going to allow for 2 of the 210, 297 sheets, which is another way of doing it. And you're cutting an extra 1 out, so it's probably the most cost-effective way to run it. Then you've got to allow for your guillotine for cutting those boards down to final size. So now we've allowed for the guillotine, and now we've got our boards. So now we can come back to our finishing. We've allowed for the boards. We've allowed for the quarter binding. If you've got any additional costs you want to add in under finishing, you can do so over there. But once the binding is now done, you can head over to deliveries, and you can now say you want to shrink wrap these books, and you can say maybe you're going to put 5 in a pack. So I'll just override that to 5. And we maybe want to allow for a local delivery. There we go. And basically that's that. The quote is now complete. You've got your selling price there, your cost price, and the difference between the two in the rand value. And you can now come over to your print button, hit that print button, and you can now print your actual quote letter, which will go off to the client. So we'll just wait for that to propagate. Now, once you view the quote letter on your screen, you're just going to make sure that everything is in according to how you want it to be. You can review your pricing, and on Dolphin, you've got the 2 options. You can either hit the print button on top to print a hard copy, or you can hit the email. It will convert this to a PDF, attach it in your Outlook, and you can just send it off to the client. Now, just one other thing I want to touch on when you're quoting multi-part books. A lot of you are probably thinking, so what if I'm quoting something 2 to view, or 4 to view, or 5 to view if it's voucher books or whatever the case may be? With Dolphin, we don't have a column where you can populate how much to view and it will work it out automatically. Instead, what you've got to do is, if you're quoting A5 books 2 to view, it means you've got an A4 ultimately that you're quoting. And that is the size you need to populate in the system, the finish size. In your quote description, you will populate it's 2 to view. Whether you've got multiple up to view, the only thing you need to account for as an estimator is, do you have the capabilities on your machine to number that many up in one pass? So if it's 5 to view and you only have 2 numbering barrels, then you know what? You can't. You unfortunately can't do it one pass through the machine. If it's a small run, you may have to hand number it. You may have to outsource it to somebody who actually has 5 numbering barrels and can run it through for you. But that's a decision you make based on your company capabilities. But if it's maybe a DL and it's 4 to view, then you need to populate that size as 210 by 400 or 396 or whatever it works out to, and calculate the quote based on the overall size of the book is how you calculate to view. Okay, so I hope that all makes sense to you. Now, just remember, very importantly, when you're quoting multi-part books, you have to specify, when you set up your NCR, you have to specify same plates. If it's different plates, remember, and you've got 50 sets, it's going to allow a plate for every single set that you have. So if you're doing a triplicate, 15 triplicate, you could end up with 150 plates in your actual quotation, and that's going to throw it way out. So that's a very important thing to consider when you're setting up your NCRs, same plates. Okay, that's very important. So I hope that you found this very helpful when you are setting up multi-part books in Dolphin 4. If you do have any questions, or you do have any concerns, or you're stuck after viewing the video, please feel free to contact our offices, and we can always schedule a team viewer session to run you through the process on your own database. Okay, so thanks once again for watching the videos. If you find it helpful, please click like and subscribe to the channel so that you can also be updated whenever we post new videos. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoy working on Dolphin 4, and I hope that the system is proving to be a great help to your company. Thank you very much.